Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, the first choice to start a career. At Thomas Nelson, gain skills to succeed in fields like cybersecurity and education through short-term training and 2-year degrees. More at tncc.edu/firstchoice.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. What image comes to mind when you think of a philanthropist? An older, rich white man or woman with lots of money to spare? A tech giant who takes social responsibility seriously? A Hollywood mogul? Professional sports figure? Does an African American come to mind? In fact, even African Americans don't think of themselves as philanthropists. They just give. And that's the topic of Another View today. The results of the Giving Black report, just released by the Hampton Roads Community Foundation. What researchers found may surprise you. Vivian Oden and Nicole Cleveland are standing by. Stay tuned. Another View will be right back after this news from NPR and WHRV News.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Happy Thursday to you. I've been talking a lot about getting the shot, and I realized that I also need to be telling you where to go to get your shots, because it is so important that all of us become fully vaccinated. You've heard about the upcoming booster shot that's going to be necessary, and we're going to have Dr. Keith Newby with us next Thursday to talk about all of that and to answer all of your questions. But I wanted to let you know that the Hampton Roads Transit is partnering with Centera and Second Calvary Baptist Church, and they've been offering pop-up vaccine clinics at the transit centers owned by Hampton Roads Transit. So the downtown Norfolk Transit Center will have a pop-up vaccine clinic on Tuesday, August 31st from 3 until 5 p.m. That's Tuesday, August 31st from 3 until 5 p.m. You can go to the transit center. It's in downtown Norfolk, and get your shot. Do your part so that all of us can get back to living what we call a normal life. So the Hampton Roads Community Foundation just released a report on African American philanthropy. The report is called Giving Black Hampton Roads, and it talks about the history of Blacks giving, where they stand today, and what makes their philanthropy unique from other groups. Joining me to talk about Giving Black is Vivian Oden, Vice President of Equity and Inclusion with the Hampton Roads Community Foundation. How are you, Vivian?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this. Thank you for being with me. And Nicole Cleveland, Annual Fund Director with WHRO Public Media. Hey, Nicole, how you doing?
Hey, Barbara. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I have two professional fundraisers on the call today, and we're going to talk about what it means to give black. But, Vivian, I want to start with you. Why did the Hampton Roads Community Foundation undertake this project? Why do this study at all?
So the reason why the Hampton Roads Community Foundation really wanted to go into Giving Black Hampton Roads was the narrative many a times did not always include the Black community and philanthropy. There have been myths out there about Black people don't give or Black people give a certain way. And so in 2018, when we had the first celebration of Black Philanthropy Month in our region, that was great to hear the different stories, but we really wanted to have the data to really tell their stories and hear the voices of the Black community in Hampton Roads. And we wanted to use this report as a way to debunk those myths out there and downplay that Black people are not giving or Black people don't have money to give or Black people give a certain way. Instead of having those myths out there, let's actually talk to Black people. Let's actually have conversations with Black people and really find out how are they giving, what's important to them, how are they giving their time. Many times people think about philanthropy as someone just giving their money and they have to have thousands of dollars to give millions of dollars. But philanthropy is beyond money. It's about people giving their time. They're serving on boards, volunteering in the community, giving their testimonies, connecting people, giving their tithes. And so the Hampton Roads Community Foundation really wanted to get in, hear the voices, hear the impact of Black philanthropy and Black giving in our region, and allow the Black community to tell their own stories. Okay. And so this was really important for us to do this.
And I wanted to follow up on that term about philanthropists, because you're absolutely right. Most times people think of philanthropy or a philanthropist, you just think about how much money they can give. This report defines it as time, talent, ties, treasures, and testimony. Is that definition universal, or is that definition specific to the Black community?
It is. I would say that it is universal. People in other communities, not just the Black community, also are giving their time and volunteering in the community. They're giving their talents. They're serving on boards. They're making connections with people, so they're giving their ties. And then testimonies are so important for people to be able to share their testimonies of how they've been able to help family and friends. So I will say that it does go across communities, but many a times when people are talking about philanthropy, they only focus on the treasures, and they don't many a times focus on the other aspects, the other T's of philanthropy.
Right. So tell me who did you talk to? Give us a kind of the demographics, the setup of the study so that people understand, and then we'll get into more of what you found.
Okay, great. So we were able to engage over 600 people in the Black community in Hampton Roads. It ranged from all of the cities, so we wanted to make sure that we did not focus on, the peninsula or just South Hampton Roads, that we encompasses 11 localities, so 11 cities and counties going into the rural parts. So from Williamsburg, York, all the way to Virginia Beach, Chesapeake, Portsmouth, being able to talk to people in each city. In addition, we had people take surveys. We had interviews. We had focus groups. Majority of the respondents were Black women. Majority of the respondents had some type of education degree, post-degree. Many of the respondents range different ages, from silent generation all the way to Generation Z. And so we wanted to make sure that we tried to encompass as many people in the Black community, a many variety of voices in the Black community as possible. Income ranged from different aspects. Most of the people had continued to have employment even during the pandemic. The people were giving, I would say 40% of respondents' household income was $120,000 or more. 25% was $160,000 or more. People gave, I would say, about $5,000 or more a year, even during the pandemic. So that's kind of the demographics of the respondents. And that really ranged.
And that amount, that $5,000, that is much higher than the national average for giving across the board, is it not?
That's correct. The national average is about $2,000 or more across the board. So yes, $5,000 is a good range. It was about 1/3 of respondents gave that much.
Okay. So you all did a presentation to the community, I believe it was a week ago today. Nicole, I know that you were on that call, so was I. I'm wondering what your response was to what you heard about the results of the survey or of the report, and did any of it surprise you?
Absolutely not, Barbara. We've been giving for years, 400 plus years, and it's just not been noted. It's not been recognized. And you take that we give in church and we give to our brothers and our sisters. I don't want to say invented it, but we are true to this. We have been doing this from the beginning of time because we help. It just, the terminology is very different for us. So if it's talking about philanthropy, a lot of Black people will say, I'm not a philanthropist because I'm not rich. But when you're giving your tithes, when you're giving your offering, when you are giving to someone that's going back to school and needs textbooks, how many of us have participated in helping someone raise money for a funeral? That's giving. That's just not noted. It's just not recognized. So the findings were not surprising to me, Barbara.
And Vivian, was there anything out of the report that you went, wow, I had no idea?
No, I would say that, one thing that did stand out was about volunteering. There was 75% of Black donors reported volunteering in Black and non-Black communities. So sometimes people think that Black people are only volunteering in their own communities. So this shows that we are volunteering across the board. So that was one thing I wouldn't say was surprising, but it stood out to me in the report. I would also say in the report, it was good to look at the history. And Nicole talked about it. We've been giving for 400 years or more. And to be able to see the historical aspect and learn about the different people throughout history and how the resilience that we had in history to give and to support each other, even as enslaved people were able to support their families and give and come together and create businesses and create that wealth. And so seeing that part, the historical aspect, was really huge for me and was an eye-opener because there were some things that I didn't know.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Would love to hear from you if you are a giver, if you are a philanthropist in the area and want to talk about why you give and why it is so important to give. This is August. This is African American Philanthropy Month. It is an opportunity for us to celebrate the good work that the folks in the Black community are doing. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Call us and tell us your story. Vivian, you guys spent a lot of time in this report actually going back over the history. And I wonder why you felt that was an important element in terms of telling the full story.
The historical aspect is really important because if you go back, the myths and things that people say about Black people don't give or Black people don't have money, and to show the historical, to bring it all together, to show the full picture, to talk about people like Jacob Riddick, who had his own barbershop, to talk about women in the community like Mary Scott, who was a fish dealer, to learn about different aspects to show that we are resilient. We have been philanthropists for years to show that. I think it really captured. It didn't just start a few years ago where we started giving in 2011 during Black Philanthropy Month. It started years ago. And so maybe our philanthropy, the narrative has been different or we have not been shared in that narrative. So it was really important to show the historical aspect and say, Black people have been giving for years. Black people have been coming together, supporting their communities, supporting their businesses, building communities of their own. And it was really important to tell that story. It's important to know your history to see where we're going and what the future holds. So I think that aspect of the report was really important. And as I said, it was things that I learned as far as the historical aspect, which was really so important. So I think that was important to tell the story to now bring us to where we are today.
Nicole, why are there so few African American fundraising professionals? Because I'm wondering if that's part of the reason why the narrative that, and I've heard it several times, that Blacks don't have money, that they don't give at a level that's worth the fundraiser's time to pursue, all of those types of myths. Do you think that the small number of African Americans who are actually in the field are not able to that may be one of the reasons why they're not able to overcome those myths?
Yeah, Barbara, I think there's a misconception out here that African Americans don't know anything about philanthropy. They don't know about giving. But if you look at some of these grassroots organizations that are out here, the ones that are in the trenches and then they're in the weeds, they're out here raising money, and they're raising money for homes, and they're raising money to feed people. They're run by African Americans. But I think when you get to, and they're the smaller organizations, but when you get to the more national organizations, I think a lot of that we're missing a place, a seat at the table there. And so, yeah, I think there is a misconception in regards to Black people not knowing how to fundraise or what it is.
Mm-hmm. How did you get into the business?
I worked my way up. I did not. I'll tell you a little a story or history about me. I was one of those kids that would watch telethons on TV as a child at 8, 9 years old, and I would be the crank caller to call the 800 number. And I would pledge my $20, and they would send me a form, and I just thought I was something. But Barbara, I wasn't taught that. I wasn't taught about philanthropy growing up. Mm-hmm. All I knew was that you gave your tithes and your offering at church. I didn't know anything about this other world out here, and I think a lot of people are not taught that. We're doing a much better job, but I worked my way up. I started at the organization in data entry, and so I went from data entry and just continued to go up and learn everything that I could learn at the organization, and I was fascinated by the way people gave money, and they gave to the organization because they believed not just in the African American programs, but in all of the programs. And so I was fascinated, and I just wanted to learn more, and that's exactly what I've done. And I've been at the station for over 20 years now. Mm-hmm.
So, Vivian, one of the things I think is another myth is that Black people only give to Black causes. Is that true? Is that what you found in your report?
Yeah, so many a times that is something that we only give to Black causes, or we only give to our church. Mm-hmm. And so that is not true. I mean, Black people are giving across a range of different organizations, different causes, 37% given to educational organizations. And then another percentage are given to family and friends. And then, of course, people, church and religious organizations was a high number up there, but we're giving in the report within Hampton Roads, people are giving across a range of organizations, not just Black-led or Black-serving organizations.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I found surprising in the report was that they said, I think 40%, let me make sure I get my numbers right here. 40% of Black donors reported no financial contributions to traditional civil rights organizations over the past 12 months. And considering all the racial unrest that we've had in this country, was that a surprise to you that they're not giving to the traditional, or was all the money shifted more towards like Black Lives Matter and more newer organizations as opposed to the NAACP or the Urban League, which are the traditional ones that we're used to?
Yeah, in the report, there were a list of other organizations that people were giving to. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just, you think about those cornerstone organizations, NAACP, Urban League, even we had on there Black Lives Matter 757. But even though they were not giving to maybe those cornerstone organizations, they were giving to, I would say, a list of 30 other organizations that are also doing things in the Black community and supporting the Black community. So there are organizations growing and organizations doing a lot in our community. And so there's a lot of partnerships taking place and collaborations taking place. So although people are not giving to those traditional organizations, we did survey a lot of Generation Zs and millennials. And so they're giving many times through social media and giving a different way or coming together. I mean, they were involved a lot in mobilizing people over the last few summers. And so even though they're not giving to those traditional organizations, they're giving other ways, they're volunteering in other ways.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Why do you give? I would love to hear from you about your giving, your philanthropic efforts in this community and why you think it is important. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Vivian, you did this report in conjunction with Blacks in Philanthropy in New England. Is that correct?
New England Blacks in
Thank you.
Philanthropy.
Okay, New England
Yes.
Blacks in I know I had it backwards. But they have a two things that they work on, and they've done this study in Richmond and in many other cities around the country. But they talk about the types of givers. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So they did a study in Boston and Cincinnati, and so they talked about the different givers, whether people are giving to cornerstone organizations or whether they're giving to their churches, and so they really kind of broke down the different givers and different things in our particular community and how we're giving. And so they talked a lot about within the Hampton Roads region. Many of the respondents, they were attending church a lot of times, even through the pandemic, whether it was traditional, whether it was in person or virtual. They were attending church many a time. So they were different types of donors. And so they talked about that they were sanctified and kinship donor types. Mm-hmm. And that was the type of donor in Hampton Roads, a kinship and donor type. So kinship, meaning they're empowering the Black community, meaning that they are coming together as a community, meaning they're giving their time and their money equally as viable. They're giving for the betterment of society. And that they also talked about, as I mentioned before, that they are attending church regularly and during the pandemic. So in this region, they talked about us being sanctified and kinship donors.
Okay. And so sanctified, living out the faith and kinship, empowering the Black community. Most of the donors said, though, that whatever happens to the Black community, regardless of their income level, most of them said that whatever happens to them and the Black community, they're all intertwined. Is that correct?
Yes. So they talked about linked faith.
Yes.
And that whatever you think that's going to happen to other people in the Black community, it impacts you. And so you're connected to that. So many of the respondents in the survey felt, or in the research project felt, that they were connected to other Blacks in the community. So if something happens to them, if they're not successful, if they're not able to build wealth, then it impacts them. And so that was one framework that New England Blacks in Philanthropy uses, is the linked faith framework.
Did you notice that there was a huge difference in the way and the types of giving based on someone's age? So in other words, was the silent generation and the baby boomers, were they closer in terms of the methodology they use, the amount of money they give, how they give, why they give, versus maybe Generation X and millennials and Gen Z?
So there were a range. I know with the younger generation, wealth planning was huge for them, and that they were even starting to think about that in their giving and the way they thought about giving. And so that was huge. The older generation, they thought about wealth planning, but it was on a different level. So I think with the younger generation growing up in the times now, seeing everything that is going on, being impacted, they are really looking about building generational wealth and thinking about that. And so that was one thing that stood out in the report to me about how the younger generation, Generation Zs, are really thinking about, even millennials are really thinking about wealth building and wealth planning, and seeing that as something very important and how they're thinking about their giving moving forward.
And Nicole, I wonder, as from your being the annual donor manager here at HRO, do you notice a difference in the age in terms of how people give?
Absolutely. We're more online. We're more giving online, and what we find is that younger individuals don't give like the older generation. So a lot of times, in the past we've had memberships, and we've found that some people just don't want to be a member, but they want to support the cause. So they want to make their donation online or make it via social media networks, and then go to the next cause that they want to serve.
Okay. If you're just joining us, we're talking about African American philanthropy with Vivian Oden, Vice President of Equity and Inclusion with the Hampton Roads Community Foundation, and Nicole Cleveland, Annual Fund Director with WHRO Public Media. Let's talk to Carrie in Norfolk. Hi, Carrie. You're on the air.
Hi, Barbara. I love this show.
Thank you.
I work with the Millers Foundation, and we're a funding agency. We're a funding foundation in Hampton Roads.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really struck. I can't wait to read Vivian's report. I haven't seen it. But I was struck by a grant station study that was done in 2018 that said that 75% of large charities get corporate grants, but only 34% of small charities get corporate grants. Mm-hmm. So the Millers Foundation has really tried to focus on smaller charities that are, and a lot of them are women-led and minority-led. And I think that we've done a good job of trying to attract diverse applicants by making our application only 2 pages long, and our end of the year report is 1 page long. Mm-hmm. So we try to eliminate barriers for small charities. And I think that by being bold and not focusing so much on capacity building and the capacity and the longevity of a charity, we're kind of sticking our necks out to look at some of the newer charities, some of the smaller charities, and the grassroots organizations. And by that, I think we're opening ourselves up to fund more diverse charities, women-led and Black-led. And I've been really happy with some of the agencies that we've been able to discover by just simply sticking our neck out and making it easier for people to apply.
Carrie, I'm interested into how you found the particularly minority and women-owned charities, because one of the things that another one of the myths is that, if you're not already connected, people don't know you and they don't know where to go to find you. So therefore, they don't offer that opportunity.
I absolutely think that that's true. And so we have reached out to the Hampton Roads Community Foundation, actually, coattailing on some of their efforts to identify small charities. We really put ourselves out there through our partnership with the Millers Stores and Millers Energy to try to get out there and put our face out there a little bit more. And we are able to actually recruit applicants through, believe it or not, the people who work the registers at Millers Stores, because they'll, they're neighborhood based. And so people will come in asking them for donations, and they direct them to the foundation.
I got you.
And so
okay.
they're out there. So we're really, and then once we create a relationship with a smaller charity, we're putting them in our newsletters. We're asking them to come out to our events. We're doing all these things to actually get them out in the community a little bit more. And I know that at one of our events, one of our charities had set up a table, and she met someone, invited them to serve on the board. And she would have never done that. She wouldn't have had face-to-face.
Right, had that opportunity.
Right.
Carrie, how do people find your foundation?
We're millersfoundation.org.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
And we have an annual we do annual giving. Usually the application is released in March, and we make the decision. The deadline's in June, and we make the decisions in August. And again, it's a 2-page Google form, so we try to make it really easy. Okay.
Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate that. Vivian, she brings up a very good point about how smaller organizations really don't have the connections, and larger organizations, Nicole, sometimes don't go after the smaller organizations to try to help them or to try to make that connection. I guess my question to both of you as fundraisers is what do you suggest organizations do to connect and to reach out so that people know that they're there and know what their needs are? Let's start with you, Vivian.
I would say it's really important to amplify those Black-led nonprofits or smaller grassroots nonprofits. She's right. I mean, there was a study out there showing that they were not getting the funding in the community. I know one thing in the study, it talked about Black-led nonprofits, information being accessible. And so one thing we were pleased at the foundation to receive a $1 million grant from Facebook to be able to support Black-led and Black-serving nonprofits in our region. So we were able to support 30 nonprofit organizations over the next 2 years to support them, to help them with social media, with marketing, and with different aspects of the organization, because they're on the ground, they are connected to the community, they are doing good work. And many of them are volunteers. And so they're just trying to get the work done. They're just trying to serve the community. So it was really important for us to reach out and make that connection. So I just encourage other organizations to look for partnerships, to reach out and see how they can connect, reach out and see how they can even invite Black donors to the table and have those conversations and listen to them and build that trust. I think it's all about building trust, whether it's with the Black-led nonprofits, smaller groups, or Black donors. You really have to build trust in the community to be able to bring them in and support them, or bring donors or Black board members onto your organizational board. So I really think trust is important, and I really think it's important to just reach out. I mean, we reached out. Let us know if you're a Black-led nonprofit. And that was really important for us to just reach out and have information sessions. She talked about making applications easier for people to complete. I think that is really important, taking out some of that jargon in applications and create your information sessions where people can ask questions and being accessible. We have drop-in days the first Thursday of each month. So I really think it's about being open and being accessible to the different organizations in our community.
So, Nicole, I've had people ask me all the time, when they're looking for board members, when they're looking for minority board members in particular, and they go, I don't know anyone. Can you help me to find someone? What do you suggest organizations do, people within those organizations do, to open up their circles? Because clearly there are tons of African Americans out there who can give and give at the levels that they expect in terms of being able to participate on a board.
Absolutely. I just really believe that they have to be more intentional. You've got to be intentional about putting them at the table and going after African Americans. I can remember years ago, I used to sit on the board of a homeless shelter, and I would sit at the table, and the majority of the people around me were older, white individuals with money, but the people that they were serving were African Americans, and so they really couldn't put they didn't understand, really. They just were coming at it from a different point of view and not really understanding. So it is so important to be intentional about reaching out and going after individuals, because they're out here. They have to just know what the need is, and they have to be willing to bring them on board. And we have to really relax on some of the criteria. I think a lot of times we're going after people with money, right? Those organizations just want people that have deep pockets, but it's not just about having deep pockets. It's about what the experience they bring to this table and what can they give back.
One of the other things also when you're reaching out is also making sure that you make the person feel comfortable once you bring them on your board.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
That's the other end of it, because it's not enough to just have them sitting at the table, but to actually intentionally be inclusive in terms of information, in terms of allowing them to participate and all of that. Vivian, do you agree with that?
I agree. It's not about checking the box.
Yeah,
Many times organizations like, I need some diversity on my board. I've had organizations reach out to me, help, how can I get more Black people on my board? And I'm like, it's not about checking the box.
Exactly.
This is not about, okay, if I get one, token or tokenism on your board, then you have met some type of quota. So I go back to the trust, like, being intentional, as Nicole mentioned, being intentional about connecting with different organizations in the Black communities, fraternities, sororities, connecting with churches, looking at collaboration. How can you collaborate? People want to know that you are authentic, that this is real, that you really want us on your board because you really want to hear our voice, not to just say that you have a Black board member so you can maybe get a grant because you have to meet some type of diversity total or number. It's really about building that trust, including them, hearing them, listening to what they have to say as it relates to, because they bring different experiences to the board. And I would say not getting the same Black people on your board.
Amen.
It's like, one or two, three Black people in the community. They're like, oh, they're on that board. I want to get them on my board. There's so many different Black people in the community. Reach out to different people and not getting the same Black people. So I agree. It's really about listening and not checking the box.
I agree, because I'm chuckling and I said amen because Lord knows I have gotten calls from everybody. I can't do it all, people. There are lots of Black people out there who will give and do a fabulous job. Let's talk to Edward in Norfolk. Hi, Edward. You're on the air.
Hi, Barbara. This is Reverend Ed Haywood from.
Hi.
Hi. I'm now the chaplain at the Union Mission Staff Chaplain. I wanted to share with you a story that I encountered just this past month. Happened to be visiting with the folks in our development department here at the Union Mission, and a family came up. This family was preparing to go on a vacation to Virginia Beach. All of the cousins had come down from New York. There was the grandmother and the daughters and the grandfather, and they brought a check of $1,000 to the Union Mission to donate to the homeless. What was so moving to me was before this family was going on their vacation, they thought it very important to train their children in giving. And so it was the grandmother who was the force behind this, but the whole family was involved, and the children presented the Union Mission with $1,000 check.
Oh, wow.
And so I had an opportunity to pray with and thank that family, and I think that made a tremendous impression on the young people, the fact that they would give this money. And I shared with them how important it was to give to the homeless in this community and to those who were living on the margins of life. So it was a great blessing to see that. And I just wanted to share with your audience that there are families that are doing these kinds of things that fly under the radar, and we should celebrate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Vivian and Nicole, I'd love to get your response.
Yeah, I think that's tremendous. It's tremendous. And I think it's so important that the children, that we're training those that are coming up behind us, because like I said, I was new to it and I didn't see it. And so all I knew was giving in church. And so I think that point that he made is so important, that our children need to see us giving, and not just giving to African-American organization, giving where there is a need. So that's very important.
Absolutely. And Vivian?
I agree. I mean, one of the recommendations of the report talks about nurturing and cultivating and investing in the pipeline of the next generation of Black philanthropic leaders. So I really think that's really important. I mean, growing up for myself, looking at church being my first time giving and being part of the Girl Scouts was another thing that I did as well. And then growing up through the years, volunteering and giving my time and money as well. So I really think it's important to do that. Even now, the younger generation, they are on social media. They are looking at different and unique campaigns for giving and bringing people together. So I think it's really important that we do nurture and cultivate and teach the younger generation about giving. We had an interactive session at the event last week, and one of the tables was around youth and philanthropy. So I really think it's important that we really need to think about our youth and bring them along in the philanthropic endeavors.
Mm-hmm. Vivian, what is Visionaries for Change?
So Visionaries for Change is a group of Black community members coming together, bringing their resources together to build an endowment where they can then give back to the Black community, charitable causes in the Black community. It's considered a giving circle, and it's really about bringing people together in the Black community, using the collective giving power of a group of individuals to then make a huge impact and being able to give back in the community. So Visionaries for Change is a giving circle that has been at the Hampton Roads Community Foundation since 2019. It has about 81 members, and so we have been raising money. Our goal for the first 3 years was to raise $500,000, and we have met and exceeded that goal. And so we are looking forward and ready to start grant making and being able to give back to the Black community.
Okay. We have a question from Facebook, and either one of you can answer this, but how does volunteering your time, actually, I want both of you to answer this. How does volunteering your time equate when it comes to philanthropy? And Nicole, I'm going to start with you because I know volunteering, especially here at WHRO, is a huge part of what makes this organization run.
Absolutely. So I always we go back to that time, that talent, and that treasure. There's a lot of people that don't have that treasure, and they can't give for one reason or another right now, but they can give their time or they can give their talent. And so it's very important in philanthropy that you give back. That's still giving. And so here at WHRO, we have a number of ways that you can give back. Well, we can't do it now because we're still in the pandemic, but before you would come out, you would answer phones, you would help at the front desk, you would help with the clerical aspects of the building. And so it's very important that you give back. I volunteer out here when we're on boards. That's volunteering our time as well. So it's very important in philanthropy.
Okay. And Vivian?
Yes, volunteering is really important. Even for myself, I tutor. I also serve on boards, and so I really enjoy it. And time is money. And you think about the time that organizations have volunteers coming in, that saves them money. You think about people serving on your board. If you're able to have an accountant or someone that is in the legal field and able to offer that resource to them, that's saving that nonprofit money. So I would say that even though people they think about time and volunteering, it still equates to money. And so I think it's really important to be able to give back to your community. If you look at philanthropy, it's not just about the treasures. It's about your time, your talent, your testimonies, and your ties.
How do we get more African Americans in particular into the fundraising field? What do we need to do? Because I think I am convinced that is the only way that things are going to change in terms of the field in general being more inclusive and not as separate as it is now.
Can I take that, Barbara?
Sure, absolutely. So Nicole?
I really think where your heart is where you need to be. And so if you want to get into philanthropy, if you want to get into fundraising, you go where your heart is. And so if you have a heart for the youth, start volunteering with the youth. Start making a difference in the lives of a small organization that's out here or a big organization that's making a difference in the community. A lot of times individuals will start an organization not knowing that there's 10 and 15 of them already out here. So I think it begins with starting where your heart is. Go out there, volunteer, really let them know what you would like to do, and then just start right there.
Okay. And Vivian, any suggestions on how we get more African Americans into the fundraising field?
Yes, I would say partnering with different organizations out there, talking with HBCUs and going out there and people, you think back to the car salesman who's asking you for something. Many times people don't want to ask people for money, and so that can be intimidating. But if you have a passion for it, if you have a passion for a particular cause, whether it's education, whether it's helping to feed the homeless, that passion comes across, and you're able to be able to ask people to come in there. So I really think it's really allowing people to understand what is philanthropy and what does that mean to be a fundraiser. And so going out there and being intentional with different HBCUs and high school students and volunteering and bringing them into the field and letting them know what is philanthropy all about and what does it mean to be a fundraiser.
Well, since I have two professional fundraisers on the line and I have 4 minutes left, left, I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to talk to our audience about your particular organization. So, Vivian, I'll start with you with the Hampton Roads Community Foundation. Tell us, first of all, where we can find this report, because I think every fundraising professional needs to read it and become aware of what it has to offer. And then tell us a little bit about how people can get involved. You got 1 minute.
Yes. So the Giving Black Hampton Roads report is on our website at hamptonroadscf.org. That's hamptonroadscf.org. The Hampton Roads Community Foundation, we are always having community events where people can come out. They're free. People can be involved, whether they're virtual or in person. So I encourage people to continue to follow us. Go to our website. Follow us online, on Facebook, on social media. In addition, if you are interested in learning more about Visionaries for Change, go to their website, visionariesforchange.org, and join other Black community members in the community making a change.
That is fantastic. That is Vivian Oden. She is the Vice President for Equity and Inclusion with the Hampton Roads Community Foundation. And you want to go find this report on their website, hamptonroadscf.org. Thank you so much, Vivian. And Nicole, you get the last 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Last minute or so.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Barbara. And if you're out here and you're listening right now and you love Another View and you love PBS and you love public media and you love NPR, it's so very crucial and it's important that you invest in what you're listening to right now. And so you can do that by becoming a member of WHRV. You can be continuing to support WHRV and Another View and the work that we're doing in the community. And you do that by calling 1-800-940-7170. 1-800-940-7170. And it's so important that you become a member of WHRO. Was that good enough, Barbara?
Yes, that was fantastic. That is Nicole Cleveland, and she is our annual fund manager here at WHRO Public Media. Thank you so much, Nicole. And one of the things that Another View is doing, we have asked that small, minority-owned, Black-owned nonprofits send us an email with their information, and we are going to be doing a series of stories highlighting these organizations. So we need you to send us your information. You can send it to contact@anotherviewradio.org. That's contact@anotherviewradio.org. Thank you to those of you who have already sent in your information, and we will be in touch with you soon, very soon. And we will be right back.
I'm with Marcellus, and you all are checking out Another View. Don't go anywhere. Check us out.
And welcome back. Another View has been following the boxing career of Keyshawn Davis for years. In 2016, we told you how the then 17-year-old captured the U.S. Junior Olympic Boxing Championship, and again in 2019 when his skills netted him a spot on the 2020 Olympic boxing team. For Keyshawn, it was a dream come true. That is, until the pandemic postponed the games for a year. Well, last week, Keyshawn finally got his shot, and now he's back home in Hampton Roads. He spoke to our Lisa Godley about his silver medal win and his plans for the future.
For Keyshawn Davis, it was a moment he thought about for years.
Here's what we know. There's 3 minutes to go to decide gold. Keyshawn Davis from Norfolk, Virginia in the red, Andy Cruz from Cuba in the blue.
It was his time to go for the gold, and his opponent, Cuba's Andy Cruz, someone he'd faced several times before.
He has fought Davis 3 times. He has won all 3 times against Keyshawn Davis. The 4th showdown, their biggest now, an Olympic gold medal on the line.
But Keyshawn was ready. After all, he's been boxing since he was 9 years old. He says while other teammates expressed how nervous they were, he just wanted to climb into the ring.
I wasn't nervous. I was feeling good. I was just feeling more than ready because I know I put a lot of work in training camp and stuff like that. So I was just ready to fight.
Better round, you think, for Davis here?
Much better round for Davis. Some cleaner punches, big heavy shots landed for Davis, but he's got to remain poised in those moments where he wants to take chances.
In the end, it was a split decision, with Cruz taking home the gold, a ruling that shocked many, including Keyshawn.
I mean, it was surprising to me because I thought I won it.
Okay, so what was it like standing up on the podium?
I was just trying to enjoy the moment. You know, I was just trying to enjoy it while I was up there because at the end of the day, it's still something I always dreamed to do. And I always just told myself I'm going to experience every moment in the Olympics because I'm never going to do it again. Even though it wasn't the color I wanted, I was just happy that I was up there and, you know, knowing that I got supporters back at home.
And his supporters were ready and waiting for him when he stepped off the plane in Norfolk with the large silver medal hanging from his neck. Now that the Olympics are behind him, Keyshawn will focus on fighting professionally, but he's quick to point out that he doesn't plan to do that for a lengthy period of time because he knows the toll boxing can take on your body.
You can't act like, you know, your body is supposed to take this much physical, you know, harm. But with that being said, I just get checked and stuff like that, you know, like if it's something sore or something just keep bothering me, like my hands or something like that. You know, get it looked at. Don't just try to keep pushing, you know, because I'm still at that age where certain stuff can happen without me knowing. And if you just keep trying to push through it, you're just making it worse. So anything that feels weird or it's anything, I'm at the level now where I know when to keep pushing or just get stuff checked.
Keyshawn says when he does hang up the gloves, he plans to become a boxing promoter. In the meantime, this Hampton Roads native is ready for all the future has to offer and serves as a wonderful example of what hard work and determination can produce.
I was just one of the kids that started off no father, 4 other siblings. I'm the second youngest. Came from a bad environment, you know, single parent home, and basically me and my brothers was just helping each other come out of our situation. And being that I got a silver medal now, I feel like it just shows a lot that a person can come from. Because I feel like it ain't never easy to do stuff like that, facing all the unexpected, especially with COVID. You know, quarantining and just having to stay focused can definitely test your character and your mental health. And I just feel like you're going to see yourself become a new person.
For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
What an incredible young man. That's Keyshawn Davis. Now, Norfolk will welcome the boxer, Keyshawn Davis, home from the Tokyo Olympics with a parade this coming Saturday morning. Davis is the second Norfolk native to bring home an Olympic medal in boxing. Purnell's Sweet Pea Whitaker won the gold in 1984, also in the lightweight division. Now, the parade starts at 10:30 in the morning at Harbor Park, that's this Saturday, and ends at the Scope Plaza. Davis, his family, and city officials will speak at the plaza around 11:15. So come on out and welcome back Keyshawn Davis, who won silver at this year's 2021 Tokyo Olympics. And I cannot stop in this show without saying thank you to everyone who supports Another View with your time, your talent, your treasure, and your testimony. On behalf of the Another View crew, we are truly grateful. And I do want to remind you that you don't have to wait until pledge time in order to become a member and join us here at Another View. You can always call 1-800-940-7170 and become a member. And you can always listen to the podcast of Another View at anotherviewradio.org or any platform where you get your podcasts. Now, next week on Another View, Dr. Keith Newby joins us with the latest on the Delta variant, the booster shot, and the impact it will have on all of us, but particularly the African American community. Thank you to everyone who took the time last week to get vaccinated. Wait, what? You haven't gotten your shot? What are you waiting for? Do it for yourself, your family, your friends, loved ones, and the community. Come on, y'all. Let's all do our part to stop the spread of COVID. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. Our intern is Lang Burgess. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Stay safe, be well, and join us again next Thursday at noon for Another View.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, the first choice to start a bachelor's degree. Tuition is 1/3 the cost for the first 2 years of college. From there, students can transfer to one of Virginia's 4-year schools. tncc.edu.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever. Whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.